How do you know if your investment properties actually make you money month to month? Not what you think they make you, what they actually make you after every single cost. Most landlords look at rent coming in and assume they're doing well. But by the time you've added up your mortgage, your utilities, your maintenance, and your management and insurance, some properties barely even break even, or worse, lose money every month. So in this video, I'm showing you the exact spreadsheets I use to track monthly profit and loss across my entire portfolio. So you'll know exactly which properties are making money and which ones need attention. I'll show you what to track, why it matters, and fill one in live with you. Best of all, you can download it for free at the end of this video. And this is how you stop guessing and start knowing when it comes to your investments. So let's get into it. Hi guys, I'm Jim Holland from Dan and Jim Property, which I run with my brother in the northwest of England. We buy houses and rent them out either as whole properties or by the room. And I've just completed my first HMO conversion, transforming a 3-bed house into a 6-bed property, and raised £160,000 in private investor funds to make it happen. Right now, I'm focused on filling my pipeline with 3 to 5 projects over the next 12 months, working towards my goal of building a portfolio of 50 HMOs. My bigger vision is to create freedom for myself and others through property, whilst providing high quality housing that people are actually proud to call their home. And when you're running multiple properties, you need to know your numbers. This spreadsheet tracks profit and loss across my entire portfolio. It shows me which properties are performing well and which ones need attention, and where my money's actually going. So if you want to follow along on this journey and learn more about HMO conversions, property investing, and managing your portfolio like a business, make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's grow together. So before we get into the specific costs, let me explain why monthly tracking actually matters. I know investors who've got portfolios of 10, 15, and 20 properties, and they don't have a grip on their monthly profit and loss. All they do is look at their bank account and they think they know how they're doing. But your bank balance doesn't tell you which property is profitable and which one's eating your money. And when you're starting out, building healthy habits around profit and loss tracking is absolutely critical. Because once you've got multiple properties, it becomes a lot harder to retrofit if you haven't been tracking from day one. Now this spreadsheet forces you to look at each property individually, and it gives you a property by property breakdown. Now this example I'm going to show you today has 5 properties, a mix of buy-to-let and HMOs. Now just to be honest, this isn't my actual portfolio, it's just a bigger example. I've created it to illustrate the point, but this is the exact spreadsheets I use for my real properties. And what you'll see is when you track everything monthly, you can spot immediately if there's any issues. You know which properties are performing well, and you know which ones need attention. You're not sat there guessing, you're looking at the real data. And ultimately, that's how you make better decisions. And most landlords don't track this monthly. They wait until their year end with their accountants when they ask for the numbers. And then they're scrambling through bank statements and they're trying to remember what they've spent. Now, in my opinion, that's not managing a portfolio. That's just reacting to chaos. If you track monthly, you're in control. You can't fix what you don't measure. And starting with this healthy approach from property 1 means you're set up to scale properly. Right, so let's talk about the income side of things. Income tracking. Why does this matter? Because that's how you track arrears and make sure your tenants are actually paying you on time each month. Now again, I know loads of landlords who haven't got a grip on their arrears. They don't have a clue how much each tenant actually owes them. And this can get out of hand pretty quickly. Particularly if, like most of us, you're pretty busy and you're not on top of this stuff. If one tenant falls behind and you don't notice for a couple of months, suddenly they're going to owe you a couple of grand. And it's going to be an absolute graft to try and get this back. With this spreadsheet, you easily list every room, every tenant, and what they're supposed to pay you and which month they paid you. And if they don't pay you, you can see it immediately. Now you can chase them before this becomes a problem. Now for buy-to-let, it's really simple. 1 tenant, 1 rent coming in, and it's easy to track. For HMOs, you might have 6, 7, 8, or even 10 tenants. Each is a separate payment, and each one of them can fall behind independently of the others. So you need a system to track them all. And this spreadsheet does that. You'll have visibility of every single room. You know who's paid, who hasn't, and who needs a reminder. And beyond the arrears, this section also tells you about voids. If a room goes empty, you can see the income drop immediately. And you know you need to market it. You're not waiting for this problem to hit your bank account by surprise. This really is your early warning system for both arrears and voids. And that's why income tracking is so important. Now let's talk about everyone's least favorite topic, expenses. And the first line item is your mortgage. Now this is typically going to be your biggest expense every month. Now all my properties are on interest-only mortgages. That means I'm only paying the interest down each month, not actually paying down the capital. And that's a deliberate choice for me for cash flow reasons and leveraging my money. But you might be at a different stage in your life in your investment journey where you actually want to start paying the capital down. And that's absolutely fine. There's just separate line items in the spreadsheet to track this. Either way, you actually need to track what you're paying for your mortgage every single month. Your mortgage payments will tell you how leveraged the property is. If your mortgage payments is 75% of your income, you're highly leveraged, which means you don't have too much cushion if interest rates go up, which they're probably going to do. You're going to absolutely feel it. If your mortgage is 40% of your income, you've got some breathing room, and you can absorb increases in cost without going into the negative. Neither are right or wrong, it just depends on your strategy and where you're at. But you need to know these numbers. You need to see which properties have tight margins and which ones have cushions. Because when these rates change, which they always will, you want to know your exposure ahead of time, not when the payments hit your account. This line item forces you to track that every single month. Next up, utility costs. Council tax, electric, gas, water, Wi-Fi. Now for buy-to-lets, tenants usually pay these directly, so you don't really have to track them. But for HMOs, typically bills are included in the rent. And that's part of the appeal, one simple payment for tenants. But that does come with a downside, and you as the landlord are exposed to usage. If the tenant leaves the window open when the heating's on, you pay for it. If they're running an electric heater all day, you pay for it. And this is ultimately why you need to track utility monthly costs. And this is why we put a lot of effort into putting an Inspire heating system in our HMO. This is where tenants are on their own loop for each bedroom, so they can control the heat in each bedroom individually. And we can also access it remotely from an app, which gives us more control over the usage. We can see what the temperature is in each of the bedroom and who's using the most heating. So if costs are spiking, we know why, and we can normally address it at the time. But even with smart systems, you need to track it, because electric and gas can fluctuate based on usage and time of year. Wi-Fi and water tend to be more stable, but all four need tracking every single month, so you can spot the trends before they become issues. Now let's talk about management, maintenance, and insurance. Management fees, if you're using a letting agent or a property manager, can typically be 10 to 15% of your rent. You need to track this because it's a significant ongoing cost. And if you're self-managing, you still want this line item in your spreadsheet, because one day you might employ someone or you might decide to hand it over to an agent. And you need to know what these costs are going to be. Now maintenance, there's always issues with property. Now this isn't what you spend every month, this is your budget. Some months you'll spend absolutely nothing. And some months you might spend a couple of £100 on certain issues. Maybe your boiler breaks. But if you budget around 5% of your rent for maintenance, you'll have the cash when you need it. You don't want to wait until something breaks to figure out how you're going to pay for it. Insurance. Landlord insurance is an absolute non-negotiable. You can't skip it. One injury, fire, and you're done without insurance. Now this varies based on property, coverage, and risk, but you need to track it every single month and make sure it's paid for. And here's what's so useful about this spreadsheet. You can add your own line items. Maybe you've bought a boiler on finance and you're paying for it monthly. You can add that as a line item. Maybe you've leased your furniture for a HMO. You can add that as a line item. This is where this spreadsheet is flexible. You can track whatever costs are relevant to your specific properties. And that's the power in having a system like this. We actually do this every single month for all of our JV partners who work with us. So if you're interested in new opportunities around property investing, make sure you fill in our investor waitlist in the description below. Right, so all these individual costs add up to your total expenses, and then you subtract that from your total income, and what's left is your net cash flow, which is your actual profit. And this is where you see the truth, not what you think you're making, what you're actually making. Now on the spreadsheet you'll see two numbers here, net cash flow in pounds and expense ratio as a percentage. The expense ratio tells you what percentage of your income goes to costs. If it's 80%, that means 80 pence of every pound goes to expenses. You keep 20%. If it's 50%, you keep 50 pence of every pound. Neither is inherently good or bad. You don't want this number to be too high, but it also depends on the absolute profit as well. A property with 80% expenses but high income might actually make more money from a pound's point of view than a property with 50% expenses but lower income. So you need to balance both. This percentage tells you efficiency. The pound amount tells you real profit. And this is where tracking monthly becomes powerful, because you can compare performance of properties side by side, and you can see which ones have a problem. And then you can make decisions based on data, not guesses. If a property is consistently underperforming, maybe you need to do a couple of things. Increase the rent, reduce the costs, or maybe you need to sell it and invest elsewhere. But you can't make those decisions if you're not tracking. And this spreadsheet gives you that visibility, every month for every property. So now you understand what to track and why, let me quickly explain the monthly review process. Because this isn't a set it and forget it spreadsheet. You need to update it every month. Now what I tend to do is I'll have a copy of all my bank statements for that month, and I'll also open up my emails and I'll have all the invoices from my loan agents. Then I'll use this as my basis to input everything into the spreadsheet. So you need to pull all of this information together once a month. Bank statements, invoices, and payment confirmations, and then input it all into the spreadsheet. You can update the tenant list if anyone's moved in or out. You can check who's paid and who hasn't. Enter every expense and then review the numbers. And that's the monthly process. 30 minutes a month, I'd say. You might be able to do it quicker once you've got this nailed. But ultimately, it keeps you in control of your portfolio. Right, so that's what to track, and that's why we need to track it. Now let me show you the actual spreadsheet. Now I'm going to walk through this example with 5 properties, fill the numbers in and show you how everything calculates, so you can see exactly how it works in practice. let's jump into it. So here we are on the spreadsheet, and we can see we've got our 3 distinct sections. We've got total income, total expenses, and total profit. So I'll just run through each of these sections at a time. So at the top here, we've got five different properties. So you can put your addresses in here, and then there's just a little drop down here to say whether it's a buy to let or a HMO, which is pretty simple. And then I've done up to 8 rooms. You can just add some more rows in if you need to do more. And then all this is looking for is tenant name and how much rent they pay. And then the total down here is just a sum of all of these rental figures here. So the bottom here is just a sum of all these rental figures, which you will input here. So you can see this for a HMO here. This HMO is making £5,250 a month. So you can just go down and put each single name in each of the rooms and which ones have paid and which one hasn't. So if someone hadn't paid, you take that off. And then that will be obvious to you that you've either got an arrears or there's a void there. So that'd be a conversation with your letting agent about how you're marketing it, what the plan is to catch up on the arrears, to make sure you're tracking that. So we've got 700 back on there, and let's say he paid that on the 4th of November. Okay, so this section's really pretty simple. Buy to let is just going to be one payment. Whatever the rooms are, you can put the rent in for each room, and then that's you good to go. And then this is just a summary of all of these bottom sections added together. So you know across your portfolio for this month, your total income will be £11,700. And then what you can do down here is do this by month. So let's just say this November, and then you can just copy and paste this along to get each single month. So you do one for December, January, February, March. So we know our total income here is £11,700. Now this will come from bank statements or letting agent invoices. One thing to remember, if you have got a letting agent, put the gross rent in, not minus their letting agency fees. Put that in down here. Sometimes when you get your letting agency invoices, they will take off their letting agency fees on the actual invoice. So you just need to make sure you do that separately on here. So you don't want to put your rent in here after the letting agent's taken their bit out. Do it as a whole and then do that as a separate line item down here. So that's the income section. Expenses, again, pretty simple to understand. Mortgage capital or mortgage interest. So if you were paying down the capital and it was $350 a month, you put it there. If you're on interest only, like I am on all of mine, it'd be $2,500 a year. That just depends on what your where you are for your situation, how you're investing, whether you're going interest only or capital. That is down to each individual. Council tax, electric, gas, water, Wi-Fi, cleaning. Cleaning is another key one, particularly if you've got HMOs. Our letting agents bill us. We get 2 months of clean on our HMO, and it's around £40 per clean. So we just have that as a separate line item on our expenses for our HMOs. Obviously for a buy-to-let, it's non-existent, and you can see the difference between buy-to-let and HMOs. More costs involved. Insurance, any maintenance you're putting against the property, and then your letting agency fees there, which will be the summary of the letting agency fees from your invoice. And then again, this totals it all up at the bottom. And then here you have each cost as an and then in this column you have each cost expressed as a percentage of your rental income. So here we know our mortgage is 48% of our rental income. Our council tax is 4%, electric is 5%. So this gives you an idea of where you're on the pie chart, where your biggest percentage expenses are. And then down here it gives you a total. So our expenses are 81% of our rental income. And then again, total expenses is just adding up of each of these totals at the bottom. So we know our total expenses are £8,670 a month. And then down at the bottom, we have our net cash flow. So net cash flow is just a really simple equation. It's just our total income minus our total costs, which again is pretty good to understand. And then this is our net cash flow expressed as a percentage of the rental income. So 18%, 19% here, 310. So you can already see here that even though from an absolute point of view, this property makes more money, this property actually as a percentage makes more money each month when compared with this property. So that's interesting to track and see over a long time. The other thing we've got over here is if you partnered with someone, you'll get your actual return because it would be divided by 50% if you had a 50% joint venture partner. And then again, you have your total profit, which will just be a adding all of these individual net cash flows together each month. So each month you'll be able to see from a total profit point of view how much you're actually making on your properties. So in this instant, this portfolio is making £3,000 every month. Right, so that's the monthly profit and loss tracker. If you track your properties like this every single month, you'll know exactly where you stand. No surprises, no guessing, just the data. You'll catch your ears before they become a massive problem, and you'll be able to spot cost increases immediately. You know which properties are actually going to make you money. Now you can download this spreadsheet for free in the link in the description below. Just click on it and enter your email, and I'll send you the spreadsheet plus my investor newsletter, where I share real numbers and lessons from me building my own portfolio. And if you're interested with working with me as an investor on a HMO project, join my investor waitlist in the description below. Fill the form in and let's have a chat and see if it works for both of us. And if you want to understand how to work out profit on HMO deals up front before you even buy a property, I've made a video on exactly that, which should be somewhere on the screen right now. And as always, if you found this useful, make sure you subscribe, as I'm putting content like this out every single week. Real property investing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.